All right. Well, hello, good evening. It is almost 7 p.m. So we're going to give people just a moment to log in and get started. But in the meantime, I will go ahead and say good evening and welcome to everybody who has already jumped in and joining us. This is Mr. Ippolito's Manifest Destiny Unit Exam Review. For my Period 1 class, you are taking your Manifest Destiny Unit Exam tomorrow. That would be Friday, April 16th. And then for my periods 4, 5, and 6 classes, you're going to be taking your Manifest Destiny unit exam on Monday the 19th. So super excited to help you out and get you rocking and rolling and just make sure that you understand exactly kind of what you need to study. And I think some of the things that, I had originally intended to include it on the exam, but just for the sake of time and with a pandemic and hybrid learning now, it's some things just had to go by the wayside. So really just kind of focusing on what is really, really, really important. And so anyway, so I want to start off by saying, once again, hello and good evening. I'll give a quick shout out to everyone that I see that is currently on our YouTube live chat. So we have Mahith. I want to say hello and welcome to Mahith. My daughter, Libby, she is on right now. She's helping me to moderate the chat. We have Sharon Alvarado. So Sharon, welcome. Alex Gonzalez, hello. Maddie Payton, Minha, Ellie Cooper, Ella, Nia, Lachlan, Julie, Sharon once again, Megan, Cameron, Nika, Chris, Lachlan, Leo, and Caitlin. And yes, Cameron, this is live. We are live and it is happening as we speak. So yes, and shout out to Tyler as well. So here's what is the same and what is different about tonight. So what is exactly the same is I am still here for you. I am here live and in person to answer your questions, anything that is on your mind that you want to know about with regard to the study guide or what to anticipate on the exam. So I'm here to answer those questions. What is a little bit different is the fact that if you go to one of two places, and I want to do a quick screen share so that you can see this, because it is going to appear. I put it for all of the classes. I put it in a couple of places. So let me go ahead and do a screen share here. So in your Google Classroom, this appears in a couple of places. If you click here, let me just show you kind of where, and if you hear a toy squeaking, it is my dog Bella, who is currently squeaking. So she decided that she's gonna have some fun right along with us here. Okay. So you'll notice this is period 1, but this is every class period. I try to make the Google Classrooms look the same. So under Manifest Destiny Unit Exam Study Resources, for period 1, it would say 414. For 4, 5, and 6, it's going to say 415. But I essentially have a few different resources for you. So the Westward Expansion Map, that was the one that we used when we played our pin the flag on the map game that we did in Pear Deck, either yesterday or today. This is a Quizlet for different vocabulary terms. This is that Painting American Progress by John Gass that we examined at the beginning of our unit. These are textbook readings, Chapter 9, Section 1 and 2, Chapter 9, Sections 3 and 4. This is your Pear Deck takeaway, and I'm pretty sure I attached it for all of the classes, your own individual takeaway, Pear Deck takeaway. And then finally, this is the one. So my period 4, 5, and 6 classes, they know about this because I just recorded it this morning before school. My period 1 students, you may not necessarily know about it because I just recorded it before school today. This is Mr. Ippolito goes over the Manifest Destiny Unit Exam Study Guide. So if you find that there is something in the study guide that we don't talk about tonight in the YouTube review, because we'll go until about 8 p.m., but if you find that there's something we don't go over or you'd like just to kind of go over it in more detail, this is me going over everything in the study guide. So it's 27 minutes, but definitely, 27 minutes worth of your time. If you're like, Mr. Ippolito, I still need more studying. So already 37 people have viewed that. So thank you to the 37 people who viewed it. So like I said, it appears in 2 places. It appears, number 1, in the blue dot under Unit 5 Manifest Destiny in the study resources. It also appears, and your class may look slightly different. Your stream may look a little bit different than the period 1 stream, but it's going to say 2 great resources to help you study. And of course, this is the YouTube that we're on right now, the YouTube live we're on right now. And then also, once again, that Loom video, Mr. Ippolito goes over the Manifest Destiny Unit Exam Study Guide. So just trying to provide a lot of resources for you and ways that you can get connected, and that you can make sure that you know everything that there is to possibly know about this Manifest Destiny unit exam that's coming up. So, and a shout out to Sadie Van Gerpen as well for just joining us, and Cameron. What's up, Cameron? Okay. So this, as it always is, it is driven by your questions and what you want to know or what you'd like more explanation, more detail on. So I would just encourage you to go ahead and throw that into the YouTube chat right now if there is something that you are interested in specifically. While we're waiting for something to come in and Libby is monitoring that chat, I'll basically kind of go through. Can I do this here? Let's see. I think I can. I believe I have well, maybe I shouldn't speak too quickly here. Okay. So I'm going to do a screen share and then I will present. That's how I will do it. Okay. All right. So this is, and I'm going to take you through this quickly. This is what I talk about in the video, in the 27-minute video. It's essentially, I go through section by section. I talk about the map. And I show you different versions of the map, the trails, and you said there's already a question, so that's a good thing. Nia is asking, can you go over American Progress by John Gast? I would love to, yes. So I think maybe the best way to do that, I'm pretty sure, did I throw that in? Now I'm questioning whether or not I threw that in in my presentation or not. So let me find, come on now. This is the challenge of when you have too many. There we go. Okay. So I'm going to hit escape on that. And thank you for your patience. I'll just do a quick screen share here. I think this is the best way to do it. And I will pull up the painting so we can talk about the John Gast painting here. So let me go. I'm pretty sure that I have. Yes, I do. I knew that I did. All right. I was second guessing myself. Okay. So this is the John Gast painting. And so the biggest thing that I would like for you to take away from the John Gast painting is that, like, we spent a fair amount of time on this in class, kind of talking about, let's go back on this one. There we go. We spent a fair amount of time in class on this, kind of talking about the different details. What do you notice? So I think, and I'm not fully done writing the test, but I think probably where this is going to go for this painting is I think it's going to be a written question, like a written response question. I think this painting is better suited to a written response than it is to necessarily to a like multiple choice, right? Because I could say, like, who is the flying figure that is the most dominant part of the painting, and of course that would be Lady Columbia right here. So I could ask a multiple choice question or two, but I think maybe it's more fitting to make that a like a written response question, right? So, but since you're talking about it, let's go ahead and refresh everybody's memory here so that you can get something out of, being here. I want to reward those of you who are here. So just to refresh your memory, right? This is supposed to represent the East Coast. The sun is in the East, which means it is a rising sun, right? So in art, a rising sun as opposed to a setting sun, like, what does a rising sun represent? It represents opportunity. It represents hope. It represents new beginnings. It represents like the starting of something, right? The sun is rising in the East. That is the dawn of a new day. And perhaps this is signaling the dawn of a new era, right? So important to notice that the sun is rising as opposed to setting. So this is the East. This would be the West. This body of water would represent the Atlantic Ocean, and this body of water would be the Pacific Ocean, right? I think we talked about in most classes that this like peninsula islandy looking thing is most likely the island of Manhattan, right? It is New York City. And this is a bridge. And I couldn't tell you exactly which bridge it is. I think the Brooklyn Bridge was built just after this painting. So this might be a different bridge, but I think we're meant to understand that this is the East River here, and this is the Hudson River, and all of this commerce and all these ships are meant to represent, like, this is New York Harbor. Right. So then all of this stuff, whether it's a railroad or it's a wagon train or whatever, it's a telegraph line, railroads, like all of these people that are coming from east to west, And I think I asked you to notice, like, what are the Native Americans doing? So we have Native Americans here. We have Native Americans here. I think I asked you to notice, what are the animals doing? So there are a lot of different animals. There's this herd of buffalo that is fleeing. There's this herd of, I suppose this could be like deer maybe, that are also fleeing. And then the rest of the animals, I think that we see, well, hold on. There are a couple more wild animals. So the bear, I think we're meant to notice, is wild, as well as this stag here is meant to be wild. All the rest of the animals you'll notice are domesticated animals, right? So this dog presumably is with the Native Americans here. Horses are being ridden. We got a couple of different dogs here. We have these pack animals, these draft animals, these oxen, right, that are pulling the prairie schooner, the Conestoga wagon. We have this horse here. We have these oxen here. So all the rest of the animals, the horse that's being ridden by presumably the Pony Express rider. We've got some draft animals here pulling wagons in the background as well. So when we analyze the painting, notice what the animals are doing, notice what the Native Americans are doing, notice what the white settlers are doing, right? Whether they are farming here or whether they are presumably going out, maybe they're going out to California to mine for gold. And maybe this guy is a fur trapper. Maybe he's a mountain man and he's going to go kill himself a beaver. Notice what this, presumably a family. You see a couple of smaller figures here in the wagon. You see who might, like, maybe that's the dad who is walking while maybe the mom and the children are in the wagon riding. So I think the thing to take away from this, and I believe it was Nia that asked the question originally in the chat, I think the thing to take away from this is just notice all of the details, right? What do you think all the details signify? And if you can back that up with evidence, then, we don't all need to agree on what art means, because art is meant for interpretation, but you at least would need to, like, back it up with some evidence, right? So we think that these are probably the Rocky Mountains. I think the other thing that I asked you to notice was the contrast between light and darkness. So why is there light in the east and why is there darkness in the west? Well, because the sun is rising, Mr. Ippolito. That's why it's lighter. Well, yes, that could be the literal interpretation, but why is the darkness? Is there other symbolism for the darkness, right? Why is it dark and cloudy over here, whereas it's kind of lighter and sunnier over in the east? So I think, Nia, hopefully that answers your question. And that's really what I'm looking for. I'm looking for you to notice the same things that you noticed when we examined this painting originally. I'm asking you to notice now. I think that's pretty much all that I'm asking you to do. So Nia, if you have further follow-up questions, please feel free to go ahead and throw those in the chat. Mahith says, how will you grade the map questions on the test? How close does it have to be to location? Yeah, I'm still trying to figure that out, how exactly I want to do those map questions, whether it's just going to be multiple choice, or if I can do like a drop a pin. It's not going to be on Pear Deck. So if I can do kind of like a drop a pin or drop a flag, drop a pin, I would love to do that. I haven't explored that feature of Go Formative yet as to whether or not I can do that. But how close does it have to be? I don't know, as close as you can reasonably do it. Like, if I can't do the drop a pin or drop a flag, then it'll be a map with, and I think maybe the best way to, let me just show you a map here. Let me get a Manifest Destiny map just so I can show you. Okay, so I'll do this one, for example. And again, my dog is loving her little squeaky toy right now. So she's very excited about Manifest. She is super excited about Manifest Destiny. She's excited for this exam. So what I would do, Mahith, is if I can't do like a drop a pin or a dot or draw on the map or whatever, then I think what I would do is I would just be like A, B, C, D, E, F. Like, I would label the different regions on a map. This is what I've done previously when I've done a test on like Google Forms, and you just have to do like multiple choice. That's boring, and I don't like that. And if I could do it a different way, I will. But if not, you just kind of need to get it close. And if you can get it close or close enough, then you get full credit. And if you kind of are in the zone, maybe partial credit. And then if you're way off, if I ask, where did the Battle of the Alamo take place? And you like put it up in Michigan, well then womp womp, like there's 0 credit for that. But if I ask, where is the Battle of the Alamo? And it's supposed to be here in San Antonio. And, if you put it in North Texas, well, North Texas is close. It's not exact, but it's close. So maybe that's going to be worth some partial credit, right? So just try to get it as close as you can. Mahith, hopefully that answers your question. Please feel free to follow up if you have more questions. Chris asks, how much information will we need to know about the map? Well, I'll tell you this. as I have said previously in all of my classes, I think I have, and has been the practice, it would be really mean of me to all of a sudden say no notes, no Google, no nothing. So full access to Google, full notes. Like the only resource you can't use is you can't talk to anybody else, right? It has to be your own work, your own research, and it will be timed this time. So in the past, I've been more lenient about, oh yeah, you need extra time, well just go, yeah, just finish it after school. Because what is happening, what I've looked at on the timing for the Go Formative is some students will take 4 or 5 hours on this test. You should not need, for a 35 or 40 point test, you should not need 4 hours to finish that test. So what I'm thinking is happening is they're like desperately trying to, like, they're trying to learn everything. Like they're trying to learn a 3.5 week unit in 3 hours. And that's not the way that learning is supposed to work. Like you should have, I'm okay with you, like you forgot a little something, you need to look it up, or you're not exactly sure where something is, you look it up. But if you're trying to like teach yourself the unit in the middle of the test, that wasn't the intention. That's not the intention of this test. So you need to, there, it will be, I think I'm going to have it timed at 75 minutes. So after 75 minutes, you need, like 75 minutes from the time you open the exam, you need to be finished with the exam. So that's my thought on that. So you will have open access to the internet and Google and notes and textbooks and all that, but you will need to finish the exam within the allotted time. Can we go over the Mexican session? Yes. And so Cameron, I think you're asking about the Mexican session section of the exam is, I think, what you're asking about. So if that is what you're asking about, then it is my pleasure. And I will go over what you need to know and then what you don't need to know. So like they said, there's a drawing option on Go Formative. Is there a drawing option on Go Formative? Well, then I am super pumped about that. Thank you. Okay. So I'm assuming, Cameron, that you're asking about, can we go over the section on the exam that talks about the Mexican session? And if that is what you're asking for, then yes, we can go ahead and do this. And by the way, this is also available on my video on Loom that I posted where I go over all of this stuff, but I'll kind of quickly do an overview. So the first question, who built the first Spanish mission in California? That is this guy right here, Father Junipero Serra. You'll notice we have been all up and down the state of California to visit all 21 California missions and all 1,111 California historical landmarks. At a lot of, I think at almost nearly all the missions, Father Serra, there's a statue of him. And you'll notice in several different instances, he's depicted with this like Native American child, which you're like, dude, why are you hanging out with this like half naked boy? Because that's just weird. Well, I think what it's trying to depict is that, I think in this artwork, it's trying to say like, these are the Christians who are coming in, like the Catholic Church is coming in, and we're going to save like these savages, right? We're going to convert them from their heathen savage ways, and we're going to turn them into good Christians. I think that's how I would interpret this artwork. But anyway, so Father Serra, Junipero Serra, is the man who is credited with first bringing the Spanish missions to California. Started his first one, San Diego de Alcalá. The San Diego mission, I think, was the first one that he built. I'm looking to Libby because she did a report on the San Diego mission. I did that one, and it's the first mission. First mission. Okay, good. So this kind of leads us into number 2, describe how the Native Americans were treated at the missions. Well, the Native Americans were basically treated like slave labor, right? So they were, and this is, so you do need to know about this. This was in the placard activity, the placards that I gave you, Mormons, women, Gold Rush, and missions. It was that placard activity that was from our class Monday, Tuesday. So we did 2 of them together, and then I had you read 2 of them on your own. So the Native Americans were treated poorly. They were basically treated like slave labor. You can see this is a Native American revolt against one of the friars there at the mission. Presumably he went too far, and so you can see these Native Americans are pretty upset. Okay. So, and then this is the part, pay close attention, because this is the part where I'm going to say to you, there's some things that you can skip over because we just didn't, the Mexican-American War, we just simply didn't have time for. So this whole thing about the rivers, question number 3, just skip it. Although if you want to know the answer, it's the Nueces River and the Rio Grande River. There was a dispute over who owned this land. Like after Texas got its independence, this was kind of the main part of Texas here. but there was a dispute over who owns this. Does Mexico or the United States own this? So after the United States annexed Texas in 1845, whose land is this? Like, is this land here that's kind of in this pea soup green? Is this Mexico or is this United States? All of this land right here, and it basically kind of came down to these two rivers, the Nueces River and the Rio Grande River. Who does this belong to? Is it United States or is it Mexican land? So that was the dispute. But again, why were Northerners opposed to the war? Because of slavery, because of this North-South balance between slave states and free states. We never got a chance to read this poem. That, like, this is again just in a pandemic and in hybrid learning. Previously, we would have had 92 minutes in a class period. We're now down to 75 minutes each class period. So we lose almost 20 minutes each class period. So something's got to go. And this poem was one of those things, learning about the kind of the origins of the Mexican War. But slavery. So if you want an answer to number 4, it's slavery. But I'm really not going to be asking questions on the Mexican War on this exam. And then which 2 men led the fighting against Mexico? It was these 2 generals. This is General Zachary Taylor, who would go on to become president of the United States, elected in 1848, took office in March of 1849. At a 4th of July ceremony in 1850, he ate a bad batch of strawberries and cream and died of food poisoning. And it was he was succeeded by his vice president, Millard Fillmore. So a little fun fact. Be careful when you go to a 4th of July celebration. Make sure that the strawberries and cream are fresh. And his nickname was, this guy's nickname was Old Rough and Ready. That's a good name for a general, right? Old Rough and Ready. This guy's nickname, Old Fuss and Feathers. That is not a nickname I want. This is General Winfield Scott. He was the other general who led the fighting against Mexico. But again, we're not even going to have time for this on the test. Like we didn't have the extra day or two to learn about the Mexican-American War. So I think the Texas War for Independence is just a more interesting war. So that's why we learn about that and not necessarily the Mexican-American War. The treaty that ended the Mexican-American War. So that was the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo. Really, the only thing that I'm requiring you to know about the Mexican-American War is this was the land that that the United States got as a result of the Mexican-American War, the Mexican cession, right? And again, that word cession, that is related to the word cede. That is one of your vocabulary terms, C-E-D-E. To cede means to hand over, right? So at the end of the war, Mexico begrudgingly handed over all of this land, right? All several million acres of this land that has become today the states of California, Nevada, Utah, most of Arizona, parts of New Mexico and Colorado, a little bit of Wyoming. And then you'll notice here, like this little slivery piece here that was not part of the Mexican cession. We decided later that we wanted a railroad to go through here. So I believe it was Secretary of State John Gadsden, or perhaps it was Ambassador to Mexico John Gadsden, who traveled to Mexico in 1853 and was like, you know what? We should have actually gotten a little bit more land from you. So can we go from the Gila River? This is the Gila, G-I-L-A, Gila River, all the way down to whatever these lines are here. Could we please renegotiate and could we have this land? And Mexico said, sure, if you pay us. And so this ended up becoming the Gadsden Purchase right down here for a railroad so that the Southern Pacific Railroad could go through and then eventually go all the way to Los Angeles. All right.
Next question is from Alexandria.
Okay, wait, hold on. I got a couple more. I think Cameron is asking about this entire section. So I'm just going to really quickly. Who was Joseph Smith and why did his followers move west? He was the founder of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, the Mormon Church. Where in California? Wait, did we miss the Brigham Young? Oh, you know what? It's because I talked about Brigham Young earlier in the presentation, because the answer to number 9 is Brigham Young, right? Brigham Young led the Mormons into the Valley of the Great Salt Lake. What challenges did they face? It was a big desert. And so they had to, I addressed this earlier in the presentation. They had to get water. They had to, so that was the answer to number 9. I don't know where number 8 is. There's just a missing number 8. And there's also a missing number 10 too. That's weird. Anyway, finally, the last question in the Mexican section. I'm confusing myself. Where in California was gold discovered, and who were the 49ers? Gold was discovered at Sutter's Mill. I know. There is Sutter's Mill. It is in Coloma, California, which is just outside of Sacramento. There is a picture of, I'm pretty sure that is John Sutter there outside of his mill along the banks of the, I think is that the American River, Libby? Do you remember American River or the Sacramento River?
It's like 911.
Do you don't remember the names of all these rivers?
No.
And so look, it is me and my daughter Libby. This is several years ago. She's in like, I don't know, second or third grade there.
Bangs and no glasses.
No glasses, no braces, but she had bangs. Anyway, so this is the site of Sutter's Mill. This is the John Marshall Gold Discovery site. And there you go. Okay. My goodness. That was a lot of talking. Alex says, can you go over the push and pull factors for the missions in the gold rush? Oh my goodness, it would be my pleasure. So push-pull factors, I'm going to scroll back. Okay, so just to be clear, you don't want Oregon Trail push-pull factors. No, Oregon Trail. You're not asking for Mormons. I think you're just asking for missions and gold rush. So yes, let's talk about that. Gold rush push and pull factors. Well, here's a push factor. If you're young and you're a man and there really aren't good jobs, or you're just bored and you live out in the East, let's say you live in Michigan or Ohio or Pennsylvania or New York, and you're 18, 19, 20, 21 years old, who knows, or maybe older. And you're like, hey, I want some adventure and maybe I could get rich. Well, this was one of the advertisements for going to California, right? Like, here, you hear stories of all of these, look, 35 days to gold region. So you can get on a steamship and you can travel down in the Atlantic Ocean. You go around Florida, you go through Nicaragua, right? You're going to travel through Central America and you're going to pick up another steamship and then head up to San Francisco. And you can be there in a month. It's not going to take 4 or 5 months like it took to get on those covered wagons across from Independence, Missouri to Oregon City, right? This in 35 days, you can be in gold country. And there are 200 jackasses available. Look right there. My students always like it when they see this poster. They chuckle. Anyway, so I think the push factor was people were bored, or maybe they couldn't find good jobs. The pull factor is, gosh, wouldn't it be exciting for a chance to find gold? Now, the reality was that very few people found gold, right? And most people came away broke. But just the possibility of being able to find gold, because honestly, and you learned about this probably back in 4th grade, the people who made the most money in the gold rush were not the people who found gold, because so few people found gold. The people who made the most money were the people who opened up saloons. They were the people who were selling shovels and selling pickaxes and selling blue jeans. That guy, remember that guy who invented blue jeans? His name was Levi Strauss. You probably learned about that in 4th grade. Those are the people who got rich, the people selling clothing and supplies and services to the miners who were mining for gold. They were the ones who got rich. They were the ones who were able to find a steady income. So those are push-pull factors in California. And then, Alex, you also asked about missions. Push-pull factors for the missions. Well, I don't know about push necessarily. I don't know if the missionaries, these Catholic missionaries, I don't know if there was necessarily a negative reason why they were leaving Spain. Or leaving, perhaps where they were living in Mexico. But I think the pull for these missionaries is the same reason for why all Christian missionaries go on a mission. And it is to go for the glory of God, right? To go and try to, you believe, if you are a Christian missionary, you believe that you are going to try to make someone's life better. You're trying to gain their eternal salvation. And try to, turn them baptized. You can see this is a painting here of a Christian friar, a Christian monk who is presumably baptizing this Native American child, right? So if you believe that you're truly going to save souls and you're going to, help people to get to heaven through baptism and through conversion to Christianity, then that's your pull factor right there. So to sum up, gold rush, push factors, boredom, not good jobs in the East. Pull factors, the chance to get gold, right? The chance to get rich, the chance for adventure, the chance for a new life, the chance to kind of mix it up. Pull factor for the Christian missionaries just to convert people to Christianity. Okay, so Alex, hopefully that answered your question. Minha asks, can you go over the vocab? Yes, I certainly can. My dog would like to talk about vocab as well. Okay, let's, again, with the squeaky toy. All right, let's get to, I'm so glad that I have these pictures. These pictures really help. Okay, so let's talk a little about vocabulary. Hey, vocab, there are only 8 terms on here, and there are some that I think are more important than others, so I'm glad you're tuned in. So first of all, manifest destiny. Gosh, I hope that you now understand what manifest destiny is, because it is the name of our unit, right? Manifest destiny is the desire, the like, oh my gosh, it is inescapable. We have to go west, right? The United States is destined. It is our manifest. It is deep down inside of us, our manifest destiny to spread all the way from the Atlantic Ocean to the Pacific Ocean. That is manifest destiny. There it is right there. By the way, in case you want to spend more time on this, this whole recording, like I spent a whole 27 minutes going over the whole study guide. So you can watch that video on Loom, but I'm glad you're here because it's always fun to be live here with you. Okay, cede simply means to hand over. It means to hand over land, right? So for example, Mexico ceded the Mexican cession. You can see that word in there. Mexico ceded the Mexican cession. They handed over that land to the United States in 1848, right? To give up power or territory. That's what it means to cede. So that's the next word. The next word is siege. And this is actually, so this is an image. This is interesting from the Middle Ages, right? This is a form of siege warfare. Siege warfare is it is basically when you have an overwhelming military force and you either surround a castle or a city or a fort or whatever, or you don't even need to surround them. You just need to kind of be ready and waiting for them. And you make it impossible for them to go in or come out, to enter or to exit, and you just wait them out. This siege technique was used by the Mexican army against the Alamo, right? That's why I want to teach you siege, because we're going to see siege. We're going to see this technique used again at the Battle of Vicksburg in the Civil War in 1863. Ulysses S. Grant will successfully use that against the Confederate Army in Vicksburg, Mississippi. So this is siege, and it is, did I put it? Yes, a military blockade or bombardment of an enemy town or position in order to force its surrender. So essentially, you just wait and wait and wait and wait, and eventually the people inside, they're going to run out of food, they're going to run out of water, they're going to run out of toilet paper, they're going to get desperate, and they will either surrender or they will be so weak that ultimately you can attack them and you can defeat them. And that's exactly what happened. The Mexican army used siege successfully at the Battle of the Alamo. That tactic worked then. Okay, next is 49th parallel, and goodness, I think you learned it. If you didn't know it before, you learned it in our map activity that we did either today or yesterday. The 49th parallel is the line of latitude that is the dividing line between much of Britain and what was British North America. It is now Canada, right? And so it's the line of latitude that separates Canada and the United States. And we were threatening to go to war. We were potentially going to go to war with the British. Gosh, my dog is still squeaking that toy. And now my family is talking too. It's a little distracting. Sorry. So this land right here, we were threatening to go to war with Britain over this land right here, British Columbia. And finally, cooler heads prevailed. And they're like, you know what? We really shouldn't go to war, because it was at the same time that we were ready to go to war with Mexico. So there were calm heads who said, you know what? Not a good idea to go to war with two countries at the same time. So let's go ahead and settle at the 49th parallel. And then we'll just go to war with Mexico. And then we can just go to war with one country at a time. This right here, this is an example. If you see like this line, this is, and I showed this to some of my classes today, I think. This forest is Canadian forest. And this forest here is United States forest. And this line where there's no trees, that is the 49th parallel. That is the dividing line between Canada and the United States. So it's real easy to spot when you're in the forest anyway. So there you go. So that is the 49th parallel.
I have a really quick question about siege from Mahith. He said, wasn't siege used in the Crusades?
I believe siege was used in the Crusades, and as a matter of fact, I think siege. I think this image is probably from the Crusades here. I couldn't give you a specific example of a battle during the Crusades when siege was used, but I have no doubt that it was absolutely. Okay, so that's the 49th parallel. Now we're talking about mandate, and the word mandate simply, it can mean an official order or commission to do something. But in this context, I will read from the article on Manifest Destiny by John L. O'Sullivan, where he says, many Americans in the period from 1830 to 1860 believe that some irresistible moral, economic, or geographic mandate called for the extension of their country's borders to include, some irresistible moral, economic, or geographic mandate. In other words, like we felt compelled, we felt like we have to, we must. It is our mandate to spread from the Atlantic Ocean to the Pacific Ocean. So other examples of mandates, like mask mandates, or this was like at the beginning of COVID, just like the stay-at-home mandates, speed limits are other examples of mandates as well. So a mandate is like you feel like you have to do it, either morally or economically or under the law or something, like you have to do it. That's a mandate. Okay, nationality is simply the status of belonging to a particular nation. We start to build that like American identity after the War of 1812. We continue it in the period of Manifest Destiny. We're feeling like, hey, we're Americans, and we have to spread all across North America, right? Like we're proud of our nationality. That national pride, that nationalism is increasing. That level of nationalism, that pride in being an American during the 1800s. Okay, insatiable. So this word insatiable means just impossible to satisfy, right? You get that satis, which is it's either a Greek or Roman word meaning enough, right? Full or enough. So if you are satisfied, like you're at the dinner table and you're satisfied, like I'm good. I don't need any more food. Like I'm full. But to be insatiable means like you are greedy, you're ravenous, you like have an insatiable appetite for land, right? So if you have an insatiable appetite for land, like you just want to keep conquering and conquering and conquering. And that's kind of the way the United States was in the 1840s, was this insatiable desire to add on more land, more land, more land. And as a matter of fact, there was even this guy named William Walker, who was very, very briefly the president of Nicaragua. We were going to take over Nicaragua so that we could use it to build a canal. Today, that canal, of course, is in Panama, the Panama Canal. But Americans wanted to take over Nicaragua. And William Walker, an American, was briefly the president of Nicaragua before he was murdered by the Nicaraguans. They didn't like him being the leader of their country. So there are more details you can learn about if you get into AP U.S. history in high school. I think you'll learn the story of William Walker. He's pretty fascinating. Or just Google him, William Walker, Nicaragua. Look him up.
You have a quick mandate question.
Oh, a mandate question. Okay, what's the mandate question?
From Tyler Chapman,
yes.
The Chinese mandate from heaven is similar. Right?
Oh, yes, the Chinese mandate from heaven. Yes, which is yes, and I think that was why if you look because you learned about mandate from heaven last year in 7th grade history, I think some of you did, and that is why I think I used the it might have been like a Confucius or something, like I use it as a graphic in the Quizlet. If you look at the Quizlet, I think there is a Confucius graphic for the word mandate. Yes. And then finally, okay, last thing on the vocab, shedding American blood on American soil. This is also something that I love talking about. It's not going to be on the test, but I will tell you this. That is President James K. Polk right there, that picture that you see. And he gave a message basically on December 7th, 1847, telling the American Congress, we need to go to war with Mexico because American blood was spilled on American soil. The Mexicans murdered American soldiers on our soil, and we need to go to war. And young pup Congressman Abraham Lincoln in 1847, this was his first and only term in Congress. He got voted out after this term. Young pup Abraham Lincoln stands up and says, you know what? President Polk, you need to prove where exactly American blood was spilled on American soil, because I don't believe you. I believe that you're making something up just to spread slavery, just to gain more land for the spread of slavery. And the other members of Congress in the North were like, oh no, he didn't. What? Abraham Lincoln, what? And the South was enraged, right? This is like, I hope he never becomes president. What? We hate this Abraham Lincoln. So Abraham Lincoln had the guts as a young freshman congressman to call out the president of the United States and say, I think you're lying. I think you are leading our country into war under false pretenses. But we went to war anyway, and Abraham Lincoln got voted out in 1848. But Abraham Lincoln, just 12 years later, would go on to become president of the United States, and he would be a big part of ending slavery in the United States. We'll talk more about him. We'll learn more about him in our units to come. Whew, okay, a lot of talking. Minha, I went over all the vocab. Sharon asks, I think this is next question. Can we go over the Oregon country section?
Yes, you also have to go with that. You got an Oregon country push-pull factor question. So if you want to do that together.
I think I could probably do that together. Okay, so first of all, going over the Oregon section. And by the way, I should mention again, if I'm ever going too fast for you, if I just skip over stuff, or if you'd rather just go in order, this Loom video right here, Mr. Ippolito goes over the Manifest Destiny Unit exam study guide. I go through it all in order, so it's all there as well. But you know me, I love history and I love to talk. So we'll go ahead and we'll talk about review section number 2 on the Oregon country. So Oregon country on the review, what 5 states were carved out of Oregon country? Boom, there you go right there. Those are your 5 states right there: Oregon, Washington, Idaho, Montana, and Wyoming. So those are your states right there. I believe it's all 3 of these states, like the entirety of these 3 states, and then portions of Montana and Wyoming right there. So that's the answer to number 1. Number 2, why were people interested in moving to Oregon? Well, this is kind of push-pull factors, right? This is kind of a combo for various reasons. So Christian missionaries, they traveled to Oregon. This is like Marcus and Narcissa Whitman. You learned about them in chapter 9. In the reading, they traveled to Oregon so they could bring Christianity to the Native Americans, so they could convert these heathen Native Americans who were not Christian, who they believe were not going to heaven. Let's convert them so that they can go to heaven. So that would be the pull factor for Christian missionaries. Mountain men would travel. There's a mountain man. So these are missionaries here. There's a mountain man right there. Mountain men would travel to Oregon to get rich from the fur trade. You can make a lot of money off of killing those little beavers and ripping their skins off and selling their fur. So that sounds gruesome, but that's exactly what they did. Farmers, so this would be like the Appleton family. If you remember One Family's Journey, the play reading that we did, farmers traveled to Oregon to establish farms on the very fertile soil, great farmland in Oregon. We actually have, my wife has family up in Oregon. They grow all sorts of stuff. They have a winery up there, and they have farms up there. So really good land for farming up there in Oregon. Many traveled to Oregon to begin new lives in the promising West, right? So regardless of the reason, I think the pull factor for all of them would be the opportunity for a new life, the opportunity for kind of like more wide open spaces and just kind of get away, cheaper land, new opportunities. I think that's why a lot of people move, right? If you move, you're going for new opportunities, new economic opportunities, or, just kind of a new way of life. So I think that was the same for all of them. Specifically the mountain men. And I think, we kind of already talked about this, the fur trade, the beaver furs, it was all the rage. She's some socialite either in Paris or London or New York, or, she's like, they were expensive. It was a sign of wealth, and it was a sign of status if you had these beaver furs. And so it was very much in fashion in the East and in Europe. And so they would trap these beavers and they would kill them and skin them. And then this high demand for furs meant that there were very high prices. So you could get a lot of money for these beaver furs. Who were the first Americans to build permanent homes in the Oregon country? Why were they there? It is the Whitmans. I already told you about the Whitmans. They got blamed. I don't know if they were really responsible for them, but they got blamed for a measles outbreak in 1847. And so the Cayuse Indians murdered and this is I don't know how accurate this is, but this engraving right here, you can see there is Narcissa Whitman, and she's like, no, don't murder my husband. And here is a member of the Cayuse Indians he's like, I don't know how Marcus Whitman is blissfully unaware as he reads his newspaper in front of the fire that he is about to get hacked to death by this man. But apparently, like, as the children and wife are all screaming, he's like, let me find out what's new in the world. And here's what's new. You get an axe to the head. Okay. So getting punchy here as we get 43 minutes into our YouTube live, but I'm glad you're here. Thank you to everybody who's here. Describe travel along the Oregon Trail is number 5. So It's not as much fun as it looked in the 8-bit game. More than 2,000 miles from Independence, Missouri to Oregon. Travelers had to cross the Rocky Mountains before winter would block the passes, right? We've talked about this. That's why you needed to leave at a certain time. We've talked about this in multiple classes. You need to leave in April or May. You can't leave too late because your hope is to get to Independence Rock, also known as the Register of the Desert. You want to try to get to Independence Rock here in Missouri. Oh my goodness, Missouri. In Wyoming. Missouri is over here. I do know my my geography. And by the way, I think I was telling some of you that Independence was over here on the east side end of Missouri. Independence, I'm sorry, is in the west side of Missouri. So if I told your class wrong, I apologize. Independence, Missouri is over here on the west side of Missouri. Anyway, your goal was to get to Independence Rock by the 4th of July. If you could get there right around there, that was good timing. Too early, and you risk getting snow, like late spring snowfall. If you leave too late, you risk getting snow in the either in the Rocky Mountains here or in the Cascade Mountains. So, and then diseases like cholera and dysentery, along with accidents, killed 1 out of every 10 travelers. So about a 1 in 10 chance that you were not going to make it on the Oregon Trail. Okay, next, what 4 countries claimed to land in the 1800s? And again, we're talking about Oregon country. So those 4 countries were the United States and Spain and Britain and Russia. So the United States and Great Britain, they had the greatest claims on Oregon territory, but there were a couple of Spanish like forts or outposts, a couple of Russian forts. As a matter of fact, if you travel up to Northern California, there is along the coast of North California, there's a fort called Fort Ross, and Fort Ross used to be a Russian fort. So there were Russian settlements actually as far south as California. Okay, and then which 2 countries jointly occupied the land in 1818? By 1818, it was it was Great Britain and United States. Those are the 2 countries. So that's the answer to number 7. And then number 8, what boundary line was set in 1845? We've already talked about this. You know this boundary line. It is the 49th parallel. 49th parallel. 49th parallel right here. There it is. 49th parallel that divided what is today British Columbia. Beautiful, by the way, British Columbia. We've been to Vancouver. We've been all over the Okanagan Valley. Beautiful up there in British Columbia. That's Oregon. And then, here's the United States today. Okay. Woo. Could Native Americans become mountain men? You know what? That is probably, I don't know for sure, but that's probably a yes. Yes, but that would be something I would have to research some more, or Mahith, maybe that's something that you could research. So I suppose it's possible, although if most Native American, you think about it, if most Native American belief systems believe in living in harmony with nature and in harmony with the animals, then I think they would believe in using animals for practical purposes, for food, or for like warmth, for pelts for themselves. So I believe that Native Americans would kill beavers for their pelts, for their own use, to warm themselves and their families and their children. Would they sell the pelts? I don't know. That's a good question. Honestly, that is a very good question. Mahith, I think you should look that up. Okay, Nia says thank you, and Mahith says thank you. So I always like to be thanked. Lexi says, I think there is a draw option. Oh, good. Yes, I'm going to look that up. Thank you. Okay, next, where do we find information for the map location? Where do we find information for the map location? I'm not sure what your question is, Mahith. If you're asking like, where do we find where all this stuff is? We've just been kind of learning about it as we go along in the unit. I don't think there's necessarily one place where all of this information is. I think we've been learning about the different geographic locations of things all along. So, yeah, that is true. Okay. Okay. And then I think okay, so okay.
He said locations on the maps.
Got it. Locations on the map? I'm still not sure I understand. Mahith, if you could, sorry, if you could, I was a little thrown by the question. So maybe if you can, and also we had a user who was, I think, asking them some things that weren't relevant, and I don't know if that's one of my students or not. Oh, okay. Anyway,
I deleted it immediately.
thank you. Yeah. So one of the users who was on our YouTube live, I went ahead and put them in timeout.
It is true you were speaking facts. So.
Oh, okay. Well, I believe I am speaking fact. Okay. Nika asks, can you please go over number 7 on Mexican session? I think I went over the whole thing on the Mexican session, right? Yeah, I did. I'm pretty sure. Let me double check. I think I did everything. Who was Joseph Smith and why did his followers move west? Yeah, we talked about that. He was the leader of the Mormons. Joseph Smith was murdered, by the way. And then Brigham Young is ultimately the answer to number 9. Brigham Young is ultimately the one who leads the Mormons into Utah. And the challenges they faced, it was rough. They were moving out into the desert, right? So let me see if I can find this for you. So to kind of make that, I found kind of this history of the Mormon Trail in cartoon form. And so I think this is actually, I think this is on like a Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, like a website that I ended up finding this. So anyway, it was Brigham Young that led them into the valley of the Great Salt Lake, right? And they were in the desert, so they had to find water. So they had to build dams and canals and irrigation ditches, and they bring water from mountain runoff, and they fed their farms. And so, today, the Mormon Church, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, it has over 7 million members, and it started off with just this handful of followers, right? That was living in Nauvoo, Illinois, and then traveling out to the Valley of the Great Salt Lake. So they've done pretty well for themselves. But yeah, they faced great challenges, not to mention the fact that they were being, persecuted and murdered back where they were before. So so I think that pretty much answers the question on that. Noah said, who first led American settlers into Texas? So Noah, it's a couple of answers, Noah, and I'm going to tell you that because we really didn't get into much detail on the Austins. Moses Austin was the father, and Stephen Austin, here, I'll show you. So this is Moses Austin right here. He originally got the land grant from Spain, and then his son Stephen Austin would later be moving Texians in. So we didn't go over this in detail. And so honestly, the Austins, Moses Austin, Stephen Austin, I'm not going to ask about this on the test. So don't even, like, honestly, you could even leave it blank on the study guide and I would be okay with that. Just because we didn't have enough time to go into detail on that. Lachlan says, can you please go over number 6 on the second page? Number 6 on the second page. And again, I'm pretty sure, wait, there are 2 number 6s. So where did the Texans get their revenge? At the Battle of San Jacinto. And what was their battle cry? Remember the Alamo. So that's the first number 6. The second number 6, what was the name of the treaty that ended the Mexican-American War? The Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo. Let me just show this to you. But again, as I mentioned previously, because we didn't have a lot of time to go over this, it was I'm not going to put the treaty on the test. What I do want you to know is I want you to know Mexican session. I want you to know the geography of the Mexican session. I want you to know where it is. I want you to know that it was given by the country of Mexico to the United States after the Mexican-American War. I think that is important. All the rest of these details, the river disputes and the generals, we just didn't have time for that. So don't worry about, I'm not going to ask you what was the name of the treaty. Because honestly, you could just Google what was the name of the treaty that ended the Mexican-American War. Right. I mean, I try to ask questions that aren't easily Googleable. Okay. So Lachlan, hopefully that helps. Carly, Oregon country push-pull factors. We talked about those. Did we talk about those or did we? Oregon country push-pull factors?
Yes.
Yeah. So even my wife knows. This is, and again, for all the details, you can totally go into, you can watch my other video, but Oregon Trail push-pull factors here, boom, here it all is right here. So mountain men, push factors, a lack of jobs in the East Coast, no economic opportunity or mobility. What's pulling them to Oregon? Peace and quiet. Gosh, if you're an introvert, mountain man would be a great job because like there's nobody around you. You get to like just be all by yourself and killing beavers. Tons of money. Kill those little beavers. Tons of money to be had in the fur trade, wide open spaces, right? Push factors for these Christian missionaries. God says so. That's it. Go. God is telling me to go. Perhaps a restlessness or a feeling of stagnation beyond the East. Pull factors, those Native Americans, they're just waiting to be converted, right? So if you're a missionary, it's part of what you do. You go, like you want to go and convert people who are not Christians to Christianity. And then finally, for those pioneer families like the Appleton family, one family's journey, we talked about that. Perhaps a push factor, maybe dad was having difficulty getting a job or got laid off, or, it's too crowded, fewer jobs available in the East. And so that's a push factor. Remember, push factors are all negative reasons to push you away from the place you're leaving. And then pull factors, cheap land, wide open spaces, a chance for a fresh start in a new life and adventure. But mostly, well, I think all of these, I think are good pull factors. Okay. Were the Native Americans forced into the mission? Yes, they were. Native Americans weren't necessarily forced. They were sometimes tricked. But I think the Native Americans would have been completely happy had the missions never arrived. I don't know. I think they were fine before. Yeah, they were tricked into essentially slave labor on the missions.
Can you quickly, I told Megan about it, but can you quickly just go back over number 6 for Texas?
Oh, can you go over number 6 for Texas? Did we talk about this yet?
Yeah, I just told her if you go back a little bit, but I think you should just quickly talk about it again.
Oh, well, if Libby says we're going to talk about it again, then we're going to talk about it again. Texas, let me just show you here. Wait, Oregon. I'm trying to get, I want the graphic here. That's what I want. Well, let's talk about Texas. Texas. Where did the Texans get their revenge? And what was their battle cry? They got their revenge at the Battle of San Jacinto, and their battle cry was, "Remember the Alamo." Remember the Alamo. Even my wife in the next room over. Remember the Alamo. My wife has seen the movie The Alamo more than she cares to, and she has heard that many, many times. She means Davy Crockett. If you listen very quietly, you can still hear Davy Crockett playing his fiddle. Okay. I gotta warn you, I'm a screamer. Okay. Having a lot of fun here. All right. What's the definition of annex? We talked about that earlier. It means to, oh, wait, did we? Oh, no, we didn't. There it is right there. Define annex. To annex is to add on, to like reach in and go, hey, this land is ours now. And that's exactly what we did with Texas. The United States finally annexed Texas after 9 years, but the United States did not want to initially upset the balance of slave states and free states, and which is why we waited until 1845 to finally annex Texas. To use annex in another context, the city of Santa Clarita has wanted to, for a long time, annex the land that Magic Mountain is on, Six Flags Magic Mountain. Why? Because if we owned that land, if it was part of the city of Santa Clarita, all that tax revenue, Magic Mountain isn't generating quite as much tax revenue right now in a quarantine, and while we're still in COVID restrictions, but they did just open back up again. And but if that land, Magic Mountain, was sitting on the city of Santa Clarita land, all of that local tax revenue, like that portion of the sales tax, would go to the city of Santa Clarita. And since so many of the Santa Clarita, like a lot of Santa Clarita people go to Magic Mountain and a lot of Santa Clarita people work at Magic Mountain, it would make sense for that land to be a part of the city of Santa Clarita. Los Angeles County has not agreed to that yet because LA County, they like to make the money and they don't want to give us the money. So womp womp for Santa Clarita. Okay. Yes, Lexi, thank you. And Ella, thank you. Megan says, can you go over number 6 for Texas? I just did.
Yeah.
But I can say it again. Where did they get their revenge? Battle of San Jacinto. And what was their battle cry? Remember the Alamo. Okay. So for the test, we're allowed to use Google and stuff, but we just can't ask anyone for help. That's been the rule for every test in my class. Yes. You can use Google. You can use notes. You can use your maps. You can use any digital resources that you have at your disposal that you can look up and research. You just cannot use other people. You cannot use any people in your home. You cannot use any friends. You are on your honor to not get help from anybody else. You are also on your honor not to provide help to anybody else. If they ask you, you can say, Mr. Ippolito would be very disappointed. And also, if Mr. Ippolito discovers that your answer is too similar to somebody else's answer, it looks as though you have been helping each other out, then each of you would get a 0 on the exam or on that portion of the exam. So don't take that risk. Just be honest and just say, if somebody asks you for help, just say, you know what, I'm sorry, I can't help you. Mr. Ippolito would be very disappointed and possibly lower my grade. Is that oversimplified? I see. Tyler, I'm not sure what you mean by that.
I think it might have been like a cartoon.
Oh, it might. Yes. Well, sometimes you just have to oversimplify. Sometimes you have to simplify things to better explain them. So, okay. Well, hey, it is 7:59. So I think our time together is just about up, and I feel like I've answered everybody's questions. However, if you want to learn more, or if you want to go over stuff over again, or if you simply just love hearing the sound of Mr. Ippolito's voice, then you can, for 27 more minutes, you can hang on, and you can, if you go, I'll show you where to get this again, 2 different places. You can either go to the stream, and it says 2 great resources, and the Loom video is there, or you can go into classwork. And if you go to the MD unit exam study resources for period 1, it's 414. For periods 4, 5, and 6, it would show as 415. And I'll show you there. If you click there, and then right on here, Mr. Ippolito goes over the Manifest Destiny Unit Exam Study Guide, and that's the Loom video, and you can check that out. All right.
What is
So,
your favorite part of the Manifest Destiny lesson?
What is my favorite part? Who asked that question?
Me.
Oh, what's my favorite part? I don't know. I love all of it. I have to say probably the Texas War for Independence. The Alamo might be my favorite part, but there's a lot of good stuff here. So anyway, and it's only getting better. So yes, I'll first say thank you to Libby, my trusty assistant here. And I will say thank you to everybody who is on the YouTube live tonight. And I will look forward to seeing you. If you're in first period, I'll look forward to seeing you tomorrow for the exam. And if you're in periods 4, 5, or 6, I'll look forward to seeing you in class on Monday. So thank you so much. Have a wonderful evening and take care, and good luck on your exam. Bye-bye, everyone. Thank you.
So happy Mia spelled my name. Though she knows me, I think.